Absolutely.
Oh, the voice. Come on. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hello. Hi,
Hello,
Nick.
hello.
So yeah, we were just talking about how Vancouver restaurants are reopening. So I'm sure a lot of you here will be busy either opening restaurants or going to restaurants, if you haven't been already.
Congratulations. It's
Yeah,
great news.
we're a little farther away from that in Toronto, but soon.
Maybe next week. We think next week. So,
Yeah, do you think it'll be a little earlier? I feel like.
yeah, we're working on the idea that, next weekend, there's a strong possibility that next weekend
I
they
see.
will announce something. But
We are over
if
six.
it's later, then it's later. But,
Yeah,
the last time they reopened, we had 2 days. 2 days. So,
yeah. That's the well. I
but
think
it was, there was
Vancouver, they announced, like, everyone was waiting, probably expected it, but they didn't announce till today that they could open today. I think. Yeah. Right, guys. Yeah. You'll talk amongst yourself. So maybe it's appropriate then. So today's class is all about. First of all, it is the last class. And then it's about service and storage and not how to drink, but different ways to drink and enjoy the sakes, and specialty styles. Like all four of these sakes are pretty different. So that's fun. I think these are all really quite unique sakes, specialty sakes. I will. A lot of these are new to you too, Nick, huh? Like, well, two of them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I definitely had to look up, 2 of them and go, what is this?
Yeah. The Kazenamoni is going to be fun because we've had the Bodaimoto, right? From them, but now we're going to have the Kazenamori. So yep, again, today is etc. Sake, specialty sakes. We've had some of these already. We've had some. What have we had? We have had some genshu. We don't. The pouches aren't exactly. We haven't figured out. Nick hasn't invented a way to pack sparkling wine or sake into pouches. But if anyone does come up with a way, share. We're going to talk about service, so vessels, different wine glasses, different sakeware. Temperatures, I think that's a big one. I know as it gets warmer, not everyone's looking to have hot sake perhaps, but there are some things we can do still with temperature. And I know some people were playing with warming the pouches even last week. I think Elisa did that. So if you want to get your pot of warm water, you can just even, it doesn't have to be hot. It just needs to be warm, right? Is what we found last week. And get that ready. Then we'll do some warm sake at the end if you want. Storage, I think that's a really big question. I get asked that a lot. Like, how many days can I have this open? And or like, how many years should I, put this away or hide it? And the easy answer is it depends. We'll talk about what aspects this all depends on. Okay? Storage, talk about that. Pairing concepts. Next, is it next week that you're doing the wine? We're doing the wine and sake pairing. Yeah. So we're doing a 3-course dinner next week, and Nick's gonna pair with 3 wines, and then Stu from Sakai Bar in Toronto is gonna pair with 3 sakes. I feel like we could very easily do this in Vancouver. We should, and yeah.
I agree. To definitely find some people. I think it's a fun pairing. I think it's a fun idea. But
yeah.
it's just an interesting way to
and contrast and compare, and it's not like better or worse, but you can see how it changes, right? I was talking about this event to Sean, my partner, and he was like, hey, that sounds like what we do at home already. Where we just pull out like random bottles from the fridge or add lemon to things and then be like, hey, this is kind of fishy. Yeah, froggy is Sean's
froggy.
word. Yeah, froggy. This is too froggy. Yeah.
Froggy
Froggy. Oh, it's when like your wine glass is a little like maybe wet, like maybe didn't get dried well, or sometimes it's like if it's sake, if it pasteurized at a too low of a temperature and got kind of like funny, it smells a little swampy.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that would be in wine or like an actual fault or not, but swampy would be the word I'd use. Yeah, like stale water. And then trends and direction, some of the things that sake brewers are doing. We see trends every time we go to Japan or we like read about sake. We'll taste one sake today, the Kazenamoni, for example, which is called the Kazenamoni Alpha Series Type 3. And they do not tell you like what the specs are, right? And so that's definitely a trend. He's young too. He's like really good friends with Mimunosugi, so like similar age, similar kind of concepts are going on in their minds. So we'll talk more about that. Yeah. Okay, so as we've said, the 4 sakes today are all specialty styles, and of course we can't cover them all, but we're going to try to cover some of them, and hopefully you'll pick up some things that are a little off the beaten path next time. This picture is from Genbei-moto in Ebisu, and once we can travel, I'm pretty sure a lot of us will be heading straight there. It's a sake bar in Tokyo, and this is not Maria-san in the photo. She wasn't there that day, but Maria-san is someone who's like really changing the course of sake pairings. Sake in itself, like she's not a brewer. She does some like collaboration things, but she's really great at she has a chemistry background. She takes a lot of concepts and turns it really on its head. So she has a sake manga where she talks about how like these famous sake teachers would come in and be like, this sake has this fault. And she would say, well, so what? Like what does that mean? And she'll pair it with something, dish that is really delicious, and they'll be very surprised and walk away a big fan of hers. Yeah, they're believers. The sake she's pouring in the picture here, it is a yogurt kind sake, so you can see it's pretty thick, and we'll see the pairing that they do with it later. And the blue bottle is actually a sake that's aged in sherry barrel. We don't have this particular sake, a different version of this that's aged in white and red barrel wine barrels. If you drink it, either of these on their own, they're pretty strange, I guess, maybe is the word. They're pretty intense, but when they pair it with all this like aromatic herbs and spices and things at the bar, it's pretty magical. So there's so many different types of sake that you can extract from each batch, right? So a lot of these things we talk about, like Nigori or even like Muroka, genshu, these are all parts of the sake that can be isolated and expressed in itself, but often it's not. Often we take these sakes that are fresh and we will pasteurize it, we'll filter it, we'll do things to it to make it a much kind of more filtered, clearer, more consistent version of that sake. But they are all capable, speaking of like capacity of the sake to be something more, they can be different things if we choose to, if the brewer chooses to. So the first specialty style of sake you talk about, I'm sure a lot of you have heard or seen or drank this, and it's Nigori. So Nigori itself, the word means cloudy, right? So if you look into a goldfish tank and you're like, it's a little murky in there, you can say, oh, it's nigoteru, right? It means that it's cloudy. This like frog word was not maybe the prettiest words to use so far, but cloudy. And every sake, as you can imagine, starts out cloudy with rice particles of some sort, right? And it's up to the brewer to do something to the sake, to press it in order to get the solids out of the sake and to get clear sake, right? So we're separating it in order to get the chunks or even just like the particles out, and then we're left with a clear sake. But all sake starts out as this. And if you remember back to like week 1, there is no such thing as unfiltered sake. If you use the word sake, then it means, or seishu, then it means that it has been filtered or pressed to some degree, right? How do we do this? I think we've seen this photo a couple of times now. This is the Yabuta press that this lady has been washing for 4 weeks now. we use different pressing methods, whether it's yabuta, whether it's a fune boat, whether it's bags. These are all the different ways that we can use. And there's other things like dasai has a centrifugal separator, the technical term. Yeah, in order to separate the solids out of the sake. Whatever you're doing, that's the goal. Yabuta is the most common because it's the most efficient. It is probably the faster method. That's not the only reason why people do it, but if you recall, I was talking about how the equipment doesn't necessarily dictate whether it's done for efficiency, for speed, or for quality. What you use doesn't decide that. Right? You can use it for efficiency, you can use it for quality, you can use it for different things depending on your philosophy. So grade doesn't matter. We can have Daigenjo Nigori, we can have Honjozo Nigori. The Nigori for tonight is actually a Sushi, so Seishu, so it's added alcohol, but it's Yamahaya as well. So you can have any sort of Nigori. Again, any sake can be cloudy. And again, the law to be legally classified as issue, sake needs to be filtered to some extent. In BC and in Ontario, we had a little small shipment of doburoku, which was completely unpressed sake from Nightingale's Garden, and it was 6% alcohol. And it said on the label, actually, which I was talking about with somebody, says Nigori sake, right? And it's not seishu. So it's not legally classified as seishu because it hasn't been pressed, but it can still be called Nigori, if that makes sense. Yeah. And some more close-ups. We saw this, I think, all the panels in here. So each one of these is covered by a rubber section or layer, and the kasake kasu gets pressed between the rubber covers and the metal formation. And then on the right, we have the bag method where we press it by dripping it. So at this point, this method, there's no pressure put onto it. It's just by gravity. So it is very, very gentle. It's, you're not putting any force onto it. So for sakes that are entered into competition, or for small breweries, like I know Granville Island, so Masa, as well as so Artisan Sake, as well as YK3 and Izumi, they all do this form, not necessarily because they're making competition sake, but because it is the easiest way to press sake if you're not going to buy yabuta, right? Yeah, it's kind of like if you make soy milk, or you make what else? Any sort of like tofu, you're going to use this kind of method. And then we get into more kind of bigger space taking machines. This fune press, this is from Yamagata Masamune in Yamagata Prefecture, and this wooden boat press is over 100 years old, so it's been around for a very long time. On the right, you can see this is a much more modern version, probably quite new in the last few years. And this tube here that this guy is filling bags with, this is sake moromi. So this is the mash and the sake and the rice, everything into it, coming through these pipes into these bags, and they get laid down like milk bags. And there's free run. There's also where you do add a little bit of pressure, and at the very end you get more of the end bits. So you can see here. Press fraction. So today's class, we don't have any press fraction sakes. That makes sense, right? Yeah, press fraction sakes. But if you recall, I think it was week 1 or week 2 where we had Tatenokawa. And Tatenokawa from Yamagata Prefecture, it was a Junmai Daigenjo Nakadori. And I said, okay, we're going to talk about what Nakadori exactly means. But that was a sake where it's Junmai Daigenjo, yes, but it's also the middle pressing, right? So they tell you specifically, this is the heart of the sake. It's not the beginning where it's arabashiri, the free run, or the kind of like arai is like kind of wild, I guess. And hashiru means to run. So that makes sense. The middle is a nakadori. Nakagumi is sometimes used as well. So when a brewer puts on a bottle of sake, nakadori or nakagumi, they're trying to tell you this is like the very best part. Arabashiri is often really juicy and really big. If you go to like Masada, Granville Island, or YK3, you could probably taste some of their free run or the first run. Toronto at Izumi, they bottle the Arabashiri into a separate product, and it's very, very fresh and delicious and very citrusy usually. Yeah. The nakadori is kind of the cleanest part, the most purest part of the sake, and that's the part that if you're going to use the middle and the beginning, you might blend it to get that balance. And in the end, the seme is often not used, right? Because it would be rougher. It's probably had more time in the press, so maybe it's a little oxidized as well. But often you wouldn't be putting that into your blend. Okay, so sake kasu. I'm not sure if some people have used sake kasu in cooking, or you've seen it at least. But this picture of sake kasu is one version of it, and we probably wouldn't see much of it in Canada because this would be sake kasu that you get from Yabuta Press. So it's really flat, it's in sheets. And if you look really closely, you can see the rice specks in there. That's the unmelted or unfermented rice solids that are left in kind of that solid form. But kasu, the word itself in Japanese means garbage or like waste or what you don't want, right? So if you want to call someone kasu, you can do that and insult them. But it can be used for a variety of different things. It's actually very nutritious, very tasty. Marinating, like making pickles, that sort of thing is pretty common. I wonder, I'm pretty sure I've seen like Andrea, is Andrea here, or David from Ubuntu using sake kasu. A lot of chefs would, for like fish or meat, again, vegetables, right? I've also seen it get mixed into cow feed, or what would that be called? Into raising cows. Yeah. A lot of Wagyu gets fed sake kasu. Okay, so kasubuai in that little bubble here that I talk about. Buai, you might have seen this word, hopefully, is seimai buai is the same word, and it means ratio. So kasubuai is not semi-polished ratio, but it is kasu ratio, right? And this is expressed as a number in comparison to how much rice that you that you used, and then how much kasu you get. Right, so the higher the kasubuai, the more kasu you have in relation to the rice that you use to make sake. And this is a really important, kind of non-important, complicated number. I used to ask, thinking that I was super smarty pants, being like, hey, how much kasubuai do you get? Thinking that it was related to how hard you press, right? Because how gently you press the sake, I thought meant that you get more of the pure parts, and then the kasu you leave out, right? But in reality, how much kasu you get is actually more relevant to the rice, how much it has melted, how much of it has gone into the sake. So the different vintages, if you have a very dry harvest one year, then that rice is not going to melt or dissolve very easily, so you get more rice left over. If you get a soft rice and a good vintage and maybe like really hearty fermentation, then you're going to have less rice potentially, right? And that again depends on the sake that you're making. So most ginjos and daiginjos would have a lot of sake kasu, because if you imagine a lot of the ginjos and daiginjos are light, they're pretty, they're elegant, and they would you wouldn't want as much ricey flavor and like sugars and starches into your sake, right? So the daiginjos would have more kasu, and at which point a lot of brewers go, yeah, when we make ginjos and daiginjos, it's not like we're making sake, it's like we're making kasu. Like our product is sake kasu. Yeah. So if you get good fresh sake kasu from, it doesn't have to be daiginjo, but from a good sake, they're super flavorful, like really, really interesting to taste that. And you could probably see what that sake is going to taste like just by tasting the kasu. And the texture or the form of the kasu depends on what method was being used to press, right? So this is yabuta, where we have the sheets. at the end, but we can also get mashed like this. And so all the breweries in Canada use like a wooden press or like the bags, so you wouldn't get sheets, you would get this mash form, and you can buy this from any three of the breweries, I think. And on the right, this is nanazuke, so it's a kind of cucumber like gourd kind of thing that's pickled in sake kasu, and it's pretty tasty. It always has some sort of kind of like boozy lactic quality to it, if you can imagine, obviously. I wonder if anyone's making nanazuke in Vancouver. Yeah, okay, yeah. Sandra uses it both in a broth at harvest all the time and for fermenting veg and as a flavoring, yeah. You also see it in like ice cream, which, you know, it's a hit or miss for me. Sake kasu ice cream can be like a little boozy and dry. I think the freezing point for sake kasu can be kind of tricky at times. Oh, but you can get like really good pound cake made from dasai sake kasu in Japan. It's super moist and delicious. Yeah, that's your next project. Do you bake as well?
Sometimes, but
Just
I want a pound cake with dasai.
yeah,
Kasu.
pretty good.
I could order it over the internet. I'm sure something will arrive at my house. I'm not sure when or
Yeah,
what it
when.
looks like. It will
I'm
arrive.
very sad because the Japanese like mail service has been suspended outside of, like, to certain countries, and you know this one particular service is like way cheaper than air, so I've been waiting for that to reopen so I can send myself things. Yeah, but yeah, I'll talk about that later. Sorry. Okay, so pasteurization is another. So all these things we're talking about right now happens after the fermentation, right? So we've talked a lot about getting to that mash, that monomi stage. And what we're talking about is how do we finish it? So it's like techniques and things that we do, actions that we can choose to do after all the fermentation is done. So pasteurization, big topic. Most sake is not nama, right? When you get namazake, it's a big deal. Like, you know, as salespeople, we talk about it a lot, even in terms of like having in retail settings or importing it. It's pretty rare that you're getting namazake from Japan or even from Canada. So we're pretty lucky that way that we have so many breweries that we can get unpasteurized sake. The goal of pasteurization is to stop spoilage. So if you have unpasteurized cheese, it's delicious, it doesn't travel very far, and it spoils really quickly, right? So same kind of concept. We want to stop that change, which can sometimes be positive for sake depending on your compass and like how you think about things. But our goal for the most part is to stop spoilage. We want to stop the yeast, the koji, the enzymes. We don't necessarily want to kill them all, but we do want to make like docile is the word that's coming up my head, but it's not that. We want to like freeze it in time. What am I trying to say, Nick? Inactive? That's the word, right? Yeah, inactive. Because if you kill the yeast, for example, again, dead yeast does not taste very good. So we want to slow down the yeast enough that it's just like not moving. It's not doing things, but we don't want to kill it necessarily. So by pressing it, we also would get rid of a lot of the yeast and the koji and enzymes. And then by pasteurizing, we also take it a step further. Consistency, stability are the main things that we're also trying to accomplish. If you get a namazake today versus 6 months from now, you're going to get a very different thing, right? So that again can be good, but if we want consistency, then we're going to pasteurize it at least once. How it's done, usually twice, is again the most common method, right? So once right after pressing and another time before it's bottled. The timing of pasteurization is a big topic again, and we're not going to get into it too much, but definitely the trend is to pasteurize it only once in bottle. Right. So nowadays, after we press the sake, it goes straight into bottle because we want to keep that freshness. If you pasteurize once versus twice, obviously with once we get more freshness. and more flavor, twice you're going to get a lot more stability and more consistency. So once is kind of the way forward for a lot of breweries, but there's definitely twice pasteurized sakes for the most part. Okay, so pasteurization is when we use heat to get the sake to 65 degrees minimum. That's Celsius. At 65 degrees, all these things like koji, yeast, enzymes, they become inactive, and then at which point it's a lot more stable. If you see the word nama, it is unpasteurized. You should assume that it is pasteurized 0 times. If it's sake made outside of Japan, that's not necessarily regulated, then you might get different things. But if it says nama, it should be unpasteurized. Yeah. So this number 65 degrees is kind of important when we talk about service and warming sake later. If you warm a sake to drink it over 65 degrees, then we're pasteurizing again. And the more times you pasteurize, the more times you not manipulate, but you interfere, you're going to get more things leaving the sake itself. So it's like you're filtering over and over and over again. So yeah, you don't want to go over too much unless it's on purpose. Namazakes are juicy, they're big, they're roughly textured. We'll have the kagatobi nama genshu, and you'll see that nama sweetness and richness and a little bit of like almond milk gaminess. Wet wool, I don't know, wet dog, some people say. These are all things that in small amounts and balance can be really delicious. Or you take it too far, obviously, and that's going to be hard to drink a lot of. When we talk about pasteurization, it is with heat in particular. If you're going to filter with charcoal, with membrane filters, by racking, these are all or cross filter, there's different methods that people use, and that is different from pasteurization with heat. Namazake seasonality is huge, so we don't typically have namazakes from Japan in the summer, right? If it's like a summer release sake, maybe it's only been pasteurized once, but usually we get it in the spring, which is why we have the kagatobi. Vancouver, you've already had the Kazenamoni sakura. It's a little delayed in Toronto, but these are all seasonal sakes that we bring in once a year. You can see in this picture too that it's pretty kind of cloudy, and it's a little yellowish as well because it has been pasteurized. If you pasteurize this and you also charcoal filter it or use other filters, it's going to get a lot clearer. This is definitely not treated yet. It's fresh from the press. Other finishing techniques. When we say roka, right? Roka just means filtering, but it's in sake, it's specifically used for charcoal filtering. So muroka, mu being none or no, muroka is about charcoal. So we can use other things again to filter, but muroka is specifically talking about charcoal, activated charcoal that you see on this person's hand there. So the black stuff, that is the charcoal, and the white stuff, that's what's being used to filter the sake. Okay, so charcoal, if you look under a microscope, you can see different kind of divots or little holes in the charcoal, and it picks up aromas and flavors. Some bathrooms, a lot of Japanese restaurant bathrooms have pieces of charcoal hanging out, and that's to soak up smells and mostly smell in the bathroom. Yeah, you can also buy pieces of charcoal at Cultivate in Vancouver. It's a tea shop, and that's for filtering water as well, right? So there's different charcoal sizes that you can get as a brewer. So you get bags, and you go, okay, this is a little bigger, this is a little smaller, and what it does is it kind of acts as like an eraser. So it takes out some things. If you imagine on your iPhone, you're using an eraser app. That's kind of what charcoal does by taking things out. Charcoal gets a bit of a bad rap. People think that it's to make the sake taste really boring and commercial, but in small, controlled, well done examples, it just really cleans it up, right? And you don't have to go one or the other. You don't have to be a super filtered, crystal clear sake or completely unfiltered, but definitely we see the trend towards less charcoal as a whole. Okay. Other things that we can do for the finishing of sake, we can add water, which makes sake a little more palatable. 18% alcohol it can be balanced, but often it's really huge and like sweet. So adding a little bit of water also opens it up. The texture gets a little lighter as well. It's kind of like when you're drinking whiskey or any other spirit. By adding a little splash of water, you can taste it a lot easier. Low alcohol genshu is a popular method. So genshu meaning no water added, right? The not adding water part, we're talking specifically about after the pressing. So if you add water after pressing, it's not genshu anymore. But if you add water before the pressing and you adjust it during the fermentation, that's still considered genshu. And that's a trend. So Kazenamoni, the alpha, that one, like type 3, that's definitely a lower alcohol genshu. A lot of trendy sake breweries have some version of this, if not. Like Tedorigawa, Matsumoto, who else is trendy and does that? Kuheiji, yeah, all these guys do some version of it. But when you see the word genshu, sometimes genshu isn't written. It doesn't have to be, right? You don't need to know this. But if you write genshu on a bottle of sake, I think we talked about the G last time. If you've seen the Sake G from Oregon, from Sake One, it's a black bottle with yellow G on it, and that's for G for genshu. And it is a pretty big sake. Like it's sweeter, like it's a little hotter, I guess, as well. Kikusui, the yellow cans are also genshu. And people expect genshu to be big and full-bodied and rich and all these things, right? So by not writing it, you can kind of avoid that misconception of like thinking that it's going to be hot. Other things we can do, sparkling, so we can add sparkles, you can add bubbles. You can also do like fruit infusions. You can do like peach, pear. What else is out in the market? Yuzu. There's lots of those kinds of sakes. I saw a chocolate sake from Homare. They do like a chocolate honchozo, I think, something like that. Yeah, looks very nice. Aging is something that we can also do to make the sake evolve and be different. Mayuko-san from Kirakusho. This is a dachi, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago now. And she brought some charcoal powder for us. So these two bags have two different charcoal powder sizes. Obviously, like by me looking at it, I'm just going to be like, it's charcoal powder. But she can tell you that each one is different, right? And what we did was ask her to put, this is her sake, the Kirakusho Tokubetsu Junmai. And she said, okay, I need 3 glasses, 3 toothpicks, and some like white background, right? So she poured the sake, which already has been charcoal filtered, by the way, but not very much. So there's a little color to it. Poured into 3 glasses, and she took the toothpick, dipped it into the charcoal powder, and sprinkled just like the tiniest amount. She looked like the fairy princess, like, godmother, being like, da, da, da. And when the charcoal goes to the bottom, right? The time that it takes from the surface to the bottom, it's picking up color, flavors, aromas. And so each glass, she did a different amount. So 0 charcoal, a little bit of charcoal, and a lot more charcoal. And the one with a lot more charcoal, at the end, you can see that it's clearer. There's less color. And when we tasted it, it was a lot lighter. And you can do this at home by going to Amazon and buying activated charcoal. You can also use the charcoal for brushing your teeth, or if you want to clean your insides gently, you can use it for that. Yeah. Little science experiment. Some trends to talk about. Sparkling is very, very big. It's there are some really delicious ones like the Masumi sparkling. This is the pet nat that you love, Nick. I do too. It's so tasty. This would be a good summer one, right? Very patio-y. Is it also a little lower in alcohol? Yeah, 11%?
Yes, 11.
Yeah, that's pretty perfect for day drinking. Yeah, so this is a trend. Masumi has been making sparkling sake for a long time. I think they still have a traditional method, like champagne method one as well, which is a lot more serious, I guess is the word. This is like really fun, and like it's a crown cap, it's pet nat style. And then there's carbonation, like the Hakkai-san sparkling Nigori is carbonated. What else? If you see like Shochukubai has a sparkling sake that is like really low alcohol. It tastes a little industrial for me, but it's like readily available. So you can, Masa Granville Island, I think still makes a sparkling sake. Someone can probably chime in on that one. But I think he was working with some local wineries to get that carbonated, not carbonated, to go through the process as well. Some of the challenges for sparkling sake are acidity and texture and like the quality of the bubbles. It's really hard to get that really like nice texture, especially if you're used to drinking sparkling wine or champagne. I think the comparison can be a little unfair. But there is a sparkling sake association, an awazake association. Awa means bubbles, and I've heard like people say, "Oh, let's drink some awa tonight." It's like drinking bubbles. I've heard like middle-aged men use this term, so I feel like they're trying to be trendy, and it sounds not. But you can say that I want some awa tonight. It means you want sparkling something. But the Awazake Association is trying to standardize what can be considered awazake. But you know, if you don't want to call it awazake, you can do whatever you want. Aging, koshu is like really interesting. I love koshu. It's pretty fascinating. Again, another segment of the sake industry where there's a aged sake association called the Toki Association, and Toki means time. So they're trying to really increase the awareness and the quality and the value of aged sake. Right. Usually, if you say koshu, the characters meaning old sake or aged sake, you get like dried fruit notes, you get a lot of caramelization from the Maillard reaction, you get color as well, and a lot of bottles are clear to show that color evolution. There's, I think they're not open anymore, but there was a sake bar in Shinagawa in Tokyo that was all about, they only did aged sake. They have some things from their cellar that they're selling in retail, I think now, but you can't unfortunately go there and drink it anymore. I had a 1969 sake, which was so like caramelized and very mirin-like, very, very rich, like, and very old, you know, sherry, I guess, kind of PX-ish, paired with like candied orange peels dipped in chocolate. Yeah, like bitter chocolate, very tasty. It can do stuff like that. Koshu, I think also for like pairing or tasting menus can be pretty cool. You know, like with dashi, with like bonito smoked flavors. It is very expensive to keep sake because you're being taxed for what you brew in Japan and not for what you sell. So it's still, they're trying to increase awareness still. Yeah, I think I was telling the story to someone maybe about how the Aged Sake Association has released a very, very fancy set of sakes, 8 sakes. And it's not, I thought it was, I was counting the zeros because, you know, looking at currency is harder, but it's like 0, what? It was $20,000. Like, I'm not paying $20,000 for aged sake. I'll just age it myself. Yeah, very fancy sakes like Kokuryu and like Mizubasho. What else? Dewazakura, like some really cool stuff. But 20 grand isn't. Wasn't in my shopping. World. Yeah. But they are delicious, and depending on whether you age in tank or in bottle, that will change it immensely, right? Aging in tank is going to speed up the aging process usually because you have less tighter controls. And but often, like what people are trying to do with koshu is to see that evolution. So there are people, like there are some producers like Hirakucho that do low temperature koshu for like 5-10 years, but a lot of times you see it like room temperature and fluctuations, like again, like aging sherry, so that you can speed that up or get more of a change. Pigeon, who like Harrison works for, used to have all the best koshus that we can't get anymore, unfortunately. Yeah. Vintage declaration. Um, there's a lot of different concepts within this like one little section, right? And when a sake brewery puts the rice vintage versus the vintage that it was made versus the brew year, these are all really different things. Sometimes they like coexist, but they are different concepts, right? So rice vintage, we're speaking specifically about when the rice was harvested. So if you had Yamada Nishiki from 2019, that would have been harvested by like October of that year. And that rice would have been used at that time, maybe like late 2019, or possibly very much into early 2020, right? So that's the rice vintage. And when they tell you the rice vintage, they want to share with you the conditions of that year, how good it was, how maybe like not so good, but how they had to adjust, and also to see the evolution of it. When they put just the vintage, sometimes that often that can be about when it was made. So in the case of this 2019 rice, if it was made in 2020, they might put 2020 vintage because it was brewed in 2020, and that's what they want to show. And then when it comes to brew year, which is the most confusing of them all, I think, BY stands for brew year. One brew year for sake breweries starts July 1st and ends June 30th. And this is the time period that sake would have been made, right? So harvesting rice in October, starting your first batches in October, November, ending most likely by May, June-ish. Like a lot of the Instagram accounts for sake brewers right now are talking about how they're just wrapping up. So this July 1st to June 30th was set up in order to cover the time period that it would have been to cover one vintage or one sake year. So technically right now, because we're still in May, end of May, we're in BY 2020, right? So we're in BY 20. And then we also add to that the Japanese calendar, which goes by the current emperor's reign. We're in Reiwa 3, so that can all make it very confusing. But sake brewers are trying to, again, centralize and use the Gregorian calendar. So at least there's that. We're moving towards a little more accessibility in terms of knowing. Yeah. Do you look at the, like, I think it's a really hard thing to look for still in Canada, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And but it is something I do pay attention to now when I'm like shopping for sake, especially at the government like run places, to go, oh, okay, this has been here a while, or you know, it is there. You just have to kind of like, I can't read kanji, but I can see the 20 and I kind of know what that means. So, or the 19 or whatever it is. So
you kind of go, let me check, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the Google Translate app is pretty good as well to decode Japanese labels. It doesn't make sense, but you can kind of understand.
Yeah. By now, like everyone here is, you know, if you're looking for certain words, you're going to pick those out, and then you're like, okay, that's what this means, right? That's true. Google Translate is very. I used it in. Yeah. Anyways, use it. I think the funniest was using it in a restaurant or like a roadside stop in Hungary or something, and there was a lot of different meat, like of different animals. I'm like, really? I mean, like I'll eat it, but that's wow. Thank you, Google Translate. That's pretty useful. So yeah, you can. There are some sakes that are definitely meant to be aged or designed to be able to age, or were intended to be aged. But all these things that you now know hopefully will help you decipher what that sake is supposed to be and what it's tasting like now. And if you can, maybe just try it if you're able to, if you have the extra cash to experiment and see like, oh, this sounds a little weird, but I'm going to try it. It's probably well, it would be fun, I think. Okay, service and storage and service. This is my fridge a few months ago, I think, but it kind of looks like this at any time of the year, really. Lots of random bits and bobs of things and bottles of sake is in there. So the ideal conditions for sake is to be in a chilled, dark place, right? And like with the cap on, obviously sealed. How long can we keep bottles and how long can we keep open bottles? Two very consistent questions that I get and different answers. Okay, so we want cool, dark, upright, and we don't want light. Yeah, okay, sorry, I think I repeated my thought there twice. This is a sake fridge from a restaurant, a sushi restaurant in Hokkaido, in Hakodate, one of my favorites. The sake sommelier slash owner of the restaurant, she was like runner up in the blind sake competition in Japan, so she's very, very yeah, she's got a great selection to say the least. You can see this fridge is dark. She has the lights off on purpose. And all these bottles, all these 1.8s, a lot of them are open, but she's keeping them in there. Because in Japan, like you're not doing bottle service that often, especially in the like a sushi restaurant. You would still get 1.8s poured in front of you or, brought to you, right? So cool, of course, oxidation, heat changes or temperature changes will make the sake evolve, of course. Dark, yeah, light is, bottles are, the sake itself is sensitive to light. The dark brown ones are the best. Green's pretty good. Clear is a little tougher on the sakes, obviously. And then light blue is also not very good. It's always fascinating to see like champagne bottles, the clear ones, which are also like not good for the wine, right? Like you better drink that real quick. So yeah, different color bottles do allow different amounts of light in. So most sakes are made to be drunk within the first 12 months of production, right? This is for most sakes. So if a sake is released in early spring of 2021, then most likely that sake should be drunk within 2021. Right? Potential issues that might happen. Nama hine. So we learned nama is unpasteurized sake, and hine is to change, to turn, and it only happens in namazakes, right? But we have like microbial damage. There's a lot of different things that can happen in namazake. So we talked about the enzymes, the yeast, the koji, all those things that we want to like deactivate by pasteurization. We can avoid nama hine by pasteurizing, right? Or we can also stop it by putting it in the fridge. So if you have namazakes, like we were saying earlier, Nick has 6 bottles of this namazake from Kagatobi in the fridge, ready to go when patios are reopened. But it's in the fridge. Yeah, you can age sake and namazake, and some people enjoy that change. But sometimes it can also go kind of weird and wrong, and that's a matter of opinion whether you like it or not on your palate. Light damage, oxidation, these are all things that can change a sake quite a bit. You can also, speaking of faults, you can definitely have a corked sake, right? In sakes that have screw caps, they don't have corks, but you can definitely get that reaction. Yeah, a lot of breweries. What was I reading? I think there's an article that I sent to you too, Nick. It was, they were talking about using chemicals or using chlorine bleach in areas with like wood and cardboard, and so you can get TCA pretty easily. Yeah, so change can be positive depending on the sake, depending on your palate, but it might not be. So if you ask a super technical taster who like judges and does analysis, they might tell you this is a fault. But if you like it, why not? So depending on the style of sake, different levels of evolution happen. The genjos and daigenjos, the lighter, more delicate ones, you can lose the aromatics the quickest. You can see the change the fastest because there's so little really in that sake to not cover it, but yeah, there's so little in that sake. It's pretty simple and a little sweeter that you'll see that change really, really quickly, right? Whereas like a less polished sake at 80%, 70%, even if it changes, especially with the kinds of sake that we have now with really high acid, they're probably going to keep a lot better, or you'll see the evolution differently. So how long exactly? This is again depending on the sake. For open bottles, a week to months. Again, we talked about this. A ginjo daiginjo is going to be, like a few days would be great. Dasai, if you get Dasai 23, you probably want to drink it that day or like in the next 2 days. Whereas the Dasai 45, just to compare, you could probably have it a week from now and it would still be the kind of similar profile. Right? If you have a really rich junmai or a high acid like kijoshi, a sweet sake, then a month from now, 2-3 months from now, it's probably going to be still holding up. And if a sake is aged or oxidized on purpose, then by keeping it for months open, even you're just going to get more oxidative notes. Right? Yeah, keeping a bottle of like Banjon or anything of that world in your fridge, yeah, would definitely slow it down as well. So the more delicate, the quicker to evolve and quicker for you to notice those changes. Bottle size is important too. If you have a big bottle of 1.8 and you want to keep it for a while, you should transfer it to a smaller bottle where there's less surface area to volume, and then that'll keep for a lot longer. Right. Richer, thicker, higher acid sakes can evolve, they can open up. Actually, decanting is also something that's really fun to do with different sakes. If it's been like really tightly packed, the sake, then you can decant it and let it breathe. What were you saying the other day about decanting? There was like a certain style, or you said about sake that you wanted to open up, decant. So like an added alcohol sake?
I think so. I don't recall.
That makes
we were
sense.
tasting it.
No.
What were we tasting? No idea.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, not fun. Not a good conversation.
Yeah, we've done a few of these. But like a lot of sakes, like we've had Matsumoto in this class, right? Matsumoto, even like the Bodaimoto, maybe we talked about, right?
Yeah.
From that, the really like ancient method one. That one is just so like rich and like powerful, but there's so much going on that if you decanted it, or you kept it in the bag for a little longer, you would probably see that open up and change for the better. Not for the better, sorry, but just like change. Yeah. Matsumoto sakes, they're made so protectively without seeing oxygen. That would be another indicator for me that I could probably decant it and like release it a little bit. Yeah. Same way that, I think decanting champagne for some champagnes are really lovely. Roger in Vancouver is really good at decanting champagne and sake. So if you go to Roger, you should go be like, Reiko said that you're going to decant some sake for me. You'll love it. Unopened bottles, depends on the sake. I'm sure you've heard me. You're getting tired of that answer. But most sake is not designed to age. As much as I love aged sakes, they're not. Most of it is not for that, right? Sake sellers, sake fridges, these all help. You can. I saw like a $5,000 sake fridge that I think like it doesn't vibrate. Like most fridges have some sort of movement, right? So this like fridge is supposed to be like silent. It's kind of like the new MacBooks don't spin. It's like very silent and keeps
solid state refrigerator.
Oh, thank you. Solid state.
I don't know. I made that.
Oh, you made that?
I assume that. Well, that's what a computer is.
Yeah.
Without the hard drive.
Solid state. Yeah, makes sense. So if you want to age a sake, right, then I would choose the ones, it's of course up to you, but I would choose the ones that have higher acidity, more sugars, more richness, and because those are all reasons because you want it to stand up to time, right? If it doesn't have acidity, doesn't have complexity, doesn't have concentration, it's gonna it'll get a little sweeter maybe, but you're not going to see much evolution. There's not much flavor base in there. But the other day I had a honjozo that I had from like 6 years ago. And it wasn't like a particularly super famous fancy sake at all, but it aged quite well. Like it was in some sort of cellar condition and it got a little sweeter. I'll bring you a bottle next time because it's just like, yeah.
I was going to say that ASF would it's kind of got the high acid, the
Yeah.
sugar, hot Yamahai style. It's got a bit of oxidative Maillard kind of thing going on anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be
AFS, absolutely. Yeah. It's the first letter of the three people who teamed up to make that sake. Yeah, AFS from Kidoizumi for sure, right? The high temperature Yamahai with that like richness and sweetness and that like smoky hotness.
yeah.
It's really nice.
That might be fun. I might buy a bottle and just keep it in the cellar for like, I don't know, 5 years and just see what happens. Like it is a very unique sake. If you see it, it's not super easy drinking. It definitely has a moment in your life when you need to drink it, but it's intense. It's like very intense, but it's a very delicious.
I would love to have the AFS like over ice with a little pickled plum, like umeboshi, or maybe like a candied plum, and with like Andrea's here, right? With like pickles, like some sort of daikon pickle, or but something floral in there too. Thanks, Andrea. I'll visit you in the summer.
Yeah, it has that like, that what the choya kind of umeshi kind of thing going on. Yeah.
Yeah, but not sweet. So it's it's
Not,
a
yeah.
kind of again like Vangeon or like dry samarani or something like Hungarian. So high acid. But the koshu profile for the most of the time, if you see koshu, Dewazakura makes a really beautiful koshu. It's pretty pricey, but I think Legacy has it. Dewazakura's is really good. Kirakusho has some. Who else is in the market in Vancouver? Oh, Toshimori Shuzo. Masa brings that in. So these koshus, usually for the most part, they're going to be very like dry fruit, mirin, kind of salty, kind of cheesy, kind of lactic. Those things are going on in most koshus. You can also get kijoshu, so like a sweeter sake where you replace some of the water with sake, with finished sake. So kijoshu, sweeter style. And then if you age that, then those get really like caramely and nutty and a little more dense. Yeah, very tasty. With cheese, really delicious. We did an event with Minami back in the day where we did cheese and charcuterie with different like compotes and like miso butters and things. Pretty tasty. Yeah, koshu over ice or with a little soda is nice. This photo, you can see 76, 96, 2000, 2006. These aren't single vintages, actually. They're blends, and the youngest is what they're declaring here. So the 76 is a blend of 1976 sake plus things that are older, right? But they can only declare what is the youngest in there. And Fukumitsuya, this is the brewery. Fukumitsuya used to do these like sodas that were koshu plus soda water. They're very tasty, but like extremely expensive and not for everybody, right? If you grab it thinking like this is going to be an easy like spritzer, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get their warm water bath ready or just have it beside them in a bowl, then you can do that. Now, serving temperature, I'm sure that a lot of you have had warm sake, if not in this glass and in other times, but which sakes can be warm? That's another, I think, big question mark. And like, why do we want to warm it? You know, if you're in like snowy Japan or it's really cold, even in like, I don't know, if you're in Whistler or something, I think drinking warm sake feels like it would be nice, but what does it actually do for the flavor, right? And we can also play with the temperatures by warming it and then shocking it or pouring it over ice that can really change the sake. So it's not just about like drinking it warm and you feel good, and they say in Japan that you get more drunk drinking warm sake because it's closer to your body temperature. So if you want to try that, yeah, do that too. But we can also take that sake and change it in a way that is more advantageous or is tastier for us. Okay, so the sake is that what happens to the sake maybe is the first thing to talk about. And when you warm sake, what we get is more sweetness, usually more umami, more of that riciness comes through, and it softens a lot of things, right? You hear people talk about how mellow sake becomes when you warm it, but it really becomes kind of harmonious. You get a little thicker texture, whereas if you have that same sake chilled, it's going to be lighter and leaner and like just thinner all around. But because all these flavors like sweetness and umami come out, we need acidity in that sake to start off with in order to keep it balanced. If you have a sake that doesn't have much acidity, take for example a daiginjo with very little acidity, then when you warm it, you're going to get just like sweetness and booziness, right? Which is a reason, not just because it's expensive, but because it doesn't necessarily taste better to not warm daiginjos. Right? Because they're so light and pretty and elegant. Did you drink that sake, Andrea? I keep like picking on you, but Andrea sent me a photo of this 8% polished sake that I'm wondering if you drank it. But yeah, that 8% sake, 90%, 92% has been removed. It's going to be very elegant, very light, probably sweeter as well. And so if you, let's say you warmed it, you wouldn't, let's say you warmed it, you'd probably get kind of this like glucose sweetness, but not much else. You did drink it. Wow, lucky. Yeah, I definitely have not had that particular sake.
Good or bad? What did you think?
Yeah, what did you think?
I want to review. Love it.
Okay, so if someone wants to get me a birthday present, my birthday is in September, by the way, then that would be a very nice sake to drink. So which sakes, we said, okay, daiginjo, ginjo, because of the lack of acidity and how elegant and light it is, you don't want to warm those usually, right? But junmais, kimotos, yamahais, namagenshu, all these styles that are bigger, they're more full-bodied, and if they have more acidity, that's a good idea too. We can also take sakes that are like 80% polished, 70% polished, but really bright and juicy. Even the bodaimoto that we had last class, no, second week, right? 2 weeks ago, that bodaimoto, once you warm it, there's so much acidity behind all that like funky richness. And so you can do that. Afsu, AFS, Kidoizumi, those sakes do really well warmed. What temperatures? Chilled is 6 to 13 degrees Celsius, around there. Warm, 40, 50 is hot. Remember we said 65 degrees is temperature for pasteurization. So if you reach that, then you're going to probably take away a lot of flavors as well. But something we can do in terms of changing the style of the sake is, if let's say we take a kimoto, or let's see, maybe yamahai is easier to talk about. So we have this more savory, richer, sweeter yamahai. We can warm it up to 50 degrees Celsius, right, in this kind of warm water bath, and then pour the sake over ice, or put it into ice like you're shocking broccolis when you blanch them. And we're going to bring that back down and keep not the color of the broccoli, but keep the flavor in place, right? Some character of Yamagata Masamune. Yeah, they're Tatenokawa and Yamagata Masamune being such close proximity, like in geography, but also they're good friends. And that Yamagata water, I think, really brings it together. Yeah. So how do we want to warm sake? You can use fancy sake warmers like this in the picture. Hot water baths of any sort will work, right? And then we have these pouches now that we can put that into bowl of warm water. I think Alexi was doing that last week with the cream puffs, which I need to post about. Microwave, I wouldn't do it, right? Yeah, I always struggle answering this question, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. If you absolutely need to, sure, I won't judge you, but maybe I will. It doesn't guarantee, I think, good results. Yeah. It was a gift. Okay. Other things we can do with warming. Maria-san from Genbai Moto in Tokyo, she talks about warming a sake really gradually. So she'll take a probably a more flavorful style, warm it up by like 2 degrees, and then shock it, and then warm it up again, and then shock it, and then you see this almost like temperature graph up like this. Did she do it there? Yeah. Yeah, that's a very, very good magazine. So this is Maria-san. She's like just doing such amazing things. She'll brew tea and coffee with sake. She'll put like rice, like cooked rice into the sake to pair with sushi. Yeah, all those fun things. You can follow her just on Instagram. And this rice book that Nick has, it's in English as well. So yeah. The most recent one is a special, I think, on curry, but she's always in there. So she talks about sake in Japanese and English. Her Insta, Nick, you're gonna have to help me find it.
I've got it. I can look at it.
Yeah, so bigger, richer, more flavorful sakes with acidity are the ones that are going to be good warm. Nama too, right? Like some people say, oh, but nama is, delicate. Well, actually they're not delicate. They're quite big. And so they can stand to be like tossed around a little bit. So what makes sake so special is this is kind of a summary of the last 3 weeks. We have complex fermentation that we've talked about, parallel fermentation of the sugars and alcohol, right? So we doing these two processes or making these two processes happen together in parallel bit by bit is something that is very unique to sake. And again, why we can get alcohol percentages of like 22%, 23% that you can't get with wine, because the wine yeast will get killed by the high alcohol. But because we're gradually building it, it's like there's a lot of frogs in my stories today, like the frog that's in like warm water. You slowly warm the water apparently, and the frog doesn't feel it. So that's kind of the sake analogy too, I think. Complex flavors, we get a lot of subtleties. I know it's just rice, water, and koji, but when we talk about apple and pear and floral notes from like ginjo east and temperatures, most people probably will think like, how do you get that from just rice and water and koji? We have a lot of different acids that come out when we're making sake. So malic, lactic, citric, glutamic, that's the word I was looking for. All these acidities come together to make really interesting sakes. And there's possibilities. This is another photo of Hide, who is no longer at this brewery, but he made this series. These 5 bottles are all from different plots. I know Tyler did the tasting with us, but these stickers on each bottle represent a different place and a different farmer. And to be able to take that singularity and put it into a bottle of sake now is pretty impressive. And we've come a really long way in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, there's a lot happening in the sake world. Here in the middle picture, this is from Nida Honke, another like natural sake brewer, and he's using a sugi barrel, a sugi tank in this case, instead of the kind of more normal enamel coated tanks.
Also, fans of frogs.
Yeah, fans of frogs. Yeah, his logo is a frog, because a farm with frogs is a very healthy farm. Yeah, his t-shirt's very cute. It's like a big green frog in the middle. This diagram just goes into it a little more, but the simple fermentation of grapes, we've got sugar already, but with sake, we're doing these two processes, the saccharification and alcohol. This kind of makes it look like it's one after the other, like beer, but it is really together at the same time. So while we make sugars, we're using those sugars that we create to make alcohol, right? Playing around, I've talked about some of these already quite a bit probably, but you can warm the sake, then ice it, then we can kind of like we can shock the sake into keeping that acidity, or sometimes if you do want to take a namazake and pasteurize it to see the difference, you can do that at home now, right? So you have the kagatobi is Muroka nama genshu. So if you pasteurize it by getting it up to 65 degrees, cooling it because that's what they would do at a brewery, and then add a little bit of water, we're making a more like quiet version of the sake, right? So this sake in this pouch is like the raw version of what we're getting at the brewery, but you can on your own warm it to 65 degrees and add water and make a non-nama, non-genshu sake over ice. Yeah. So vessels. I'll be right back. So I think we've used, well, I use wine glasses a lot for tasting sake because the style of sakes that we have nowadays is quite expressive. And ochokos, as beautiful as they are kind of, they're hard to swirl, right? Basically. That's that's the biggest reason why I use sake wine glasses. But you can also take the same sake, put it into 2 different vessels, and see how that changes. All over Japan, you'll get different materials. If you go to Yua, for example, you know, Yuri will bring you out a tray of different ochoko, so you can choose which one you want to use. You always want to pick the biggest one, but or not the biggest, but different thickness, like how it hits your mouth. You know, like if you've ever watched like a Riddell presentation, same concepts there, whether it's coated or not. Like bizen yaki, which bizen is Okayama, famous for omachi rice, but also for bizen ceramics. They don't what is it called, coat their ceramics, so you get that like raw earth hardened
Yeah, glaze it.
glaze. Thank you, glaze. Anglaise, yeah. And so that will change the sake as well. So people in Okayama, natural ash glaze. So in people in Okayama, when they drink sake out of bizenyaki, they'll say that it actually filters the sake a little bit. Like the surface will pick up some things, like we'll pick up some flavors and aromas, and we'll kind of mellow it out when you do that. You also see a lot of like glass ochokos now. Ochoko is just anything like a small cup, really. Tokuri, so some sort of decanter or like vessel like this. This can also be made out of a lot of things. Wine glasses, masu, square wooden box. Usually it can be made out of plastic, but it fits 180 mils. And that is, of course I have one right next to me because, you know, but this is a masu that fits 180 mils, and really important to cook rice with. If you have a rice cooker at home, make sure you don't lose that, because you won't be making very good rice if you don't have it. Decanting, right? You can use different decanters, whether it's tokuri or a wine decanter. There are so many things you can do these days. I saw in Japan very mini decanters that people are using specifically for sake, and they just like shake it so hard for certain sakes, for like ginjo stuff. Yeah, it makes sense. Adding flavors, adding black pepper sansho to Nigori sake, that's really fun. Cinnamon, what else? Even I'm not sure about white pepper actually, but you know, you can do, the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want to it, using different like microgreens, maybe fruit. What else? Like, yeah, frozen fruit. Oh, warming sake and then putting dried fruit in your cup. It's not it's not a very strong infusion, but you'll get some of the notes of the dried fruit in there, right? Sparkling water, bitters, beer, tea, coffee. You can brew all of these with a little warm sake. Yamahai chartreuse. You have to like chartreuse to want to do this, but Tengma Yamahai with a splash of chartreuse, like cold chartreuse, is a drink that this former New York sake sommelier was talking about in the magazine.
Former sake sommelier or former New Yorker?
Former New York.
Was he banned from being, like, was he stripped of his title after putting Yamaha and chartreuse together?
Maybe, yeah, maybe it's possible.
No longer can call yourself a sake.
And now he's in Tokyo, and I think probably it's a lot of fanfare because he was a Sama in New York, or a sake guy in New York. Yeah. Yeah, I tried it. I'm not sure if I love it, but it is interesting. Yeah. I actually might enjoy it better with yellow chartreuse because green is
That would be
really
nice. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
bit milder,
And like
sweeter.
other bitters, like maybe even like Amaro, would be fun. Like maybe a little drop of Amaro with like AFS
Yep.
or Kidoizumi, one of their sakes, or this. I haven't tasted the all koji from YK3, but maybe that with a little bitter of some sort, like a grapefruit bitter.
Something with like even like an anise, something anise flavored, I think would go really well with sake.
Yeah. I've seen some Japanese bitters at the Cocktail Emporium. That's in Toronto, but they have like yuzu, matcha, I think, of some sort, ginger. Yeah, those bitters would be fun to try to
It'd be fun.
play
Ginger
with.
bitters, yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't something that I'm just making up and throwing out there, like between Maria-san, this New York sake sommelier. These are all people who are advocating, and the sake brewers too. Like adding beer to Nigori is something that the brewer or the president of Nightingale, Yamano Uguisu, told us about. Yeah. So I'm not just bastardizing this like centuries old history by doing this. Mm-mm. Yeah, this is Genbaimoto's private label Aramasa, so super fancy. These are glasses from that she uses. Basically, almost like this is her AP glass. This is her all-purpose glass from Kimura Glass, and it's I think it's called a Piccolo series, and you can buy
Not
Kimura
super
glass.
expensive. They're not
Yeah,
super expensive.
yeah, they're not like they're not Zalto prices.
No.
Well, probably after shipping it'd be Zalto, so which is still not.
No, I think you can get them in Canada
Yeah,
or the US. So they're not super expensive.
yeah.
Like they're made in Slovakia. So I think it's actually anyway. All I'm gonna say is that after mentioning it and talking about it last week, it
Hmm.
came up on my feed on
Yeah.
Instagram or Google or something.
It
And then I
hurts.
started looking at it and I was like, oh, I want some of these because they're very beautiful and like very elegant.
Yeah, really well made Japanese glassware. Yeah. Like these. And this is the one that she's chosen because it comes in a little bit, but you still have room to swirl, but not like it's definitely not like a wine swirly glass. No, it seems very like, but I like the proportions. It's quite sexy and like a little shorter. Yeah.
Yeah, reminiscent of a wine glass, but you would never put a wine in that glass, and people would be like, "Oh, that's a wine glass." They'd be like, "This
Yeah.
isn't. I don't know what this is."
Like
I like it. It's a nice middle ground.
yeah, bridge to things. This is a more traditional sushi restaurant. The katakuchi, so this like duck beak looking thing is what's called katakuchi. So it's a kind of tokuri, but it's open at the top. It kind of looks like a gravy bowl maybe, but this is a lacquered version, and it's very, very beautiful. I always want this. So food pairing concepts. Complementary, I'm sure you've heard that or thought about that with if you've tasted wine or beer or anything else. Complementary flavors that are similar usually go together, right? So prosciutto melon with a ginjo sake. Ginjo sake is often you get that melon pear kind of note. So if you take those things like in a salad or even a fruit plate. Yesterday I had some, that yellow Korean pear, it kind of has lines in it, looks a little bit like a Nerf football, and that cut with a ginjo sake, and that's really pretty to pair with. Contrasting, so opposites attract to some degree. This pairing seminar I went to, Maria-san talked about different shapes and like, visualizing the flavors as like a picture, and maybe you're missing something in that picture. You can fill that void with something, whether that's sake or with food. So Matsumoto sakes are actually really low in glucose. They're not very sweet at all. So this Japanese Vietnamese som did a pairing where he took a dish that had more sweetness in it to make that balance. Yeah. So some considerations, acid and salt are usually pretty good. Like if you have pickles or something salty like potato chips or, cheese, you're probably going to be okay. Sweet and spicy are challenging. Jalapeno chips with honjozo can be like pretty intense. Whereas if you take salt vinegar chips, that can sweeten the vinegar part, right? Sweet dessert pairings are like pretty hard to do. Umeshu is kind of the not cop out, but the easier solution. If you have some sort of fruit liqueur with dessert, is often works. But sweet desserts, like if you take like a chocolate ganache cake, to pair that with sake can be quite hard. Yeah. Intensity, length, and complexity, these are all things that you want to think about. And you can also play with, or you can change that sake that you have by changing the temperature, the vessel, how long it's been aged or how long it's been decanted to pair with what you have in front of you. I loved, a few years ago, I went up to Roger at Hawksworth and said, hey, Roger, so tomorrow I'm going to come in with Mune from Kazenamoni, and we're going to bring like 5 sakes. Can you pair all 5 sakes tomorrow with like a 5-course dinner? And then can you pair that also with 1 wine for each course? And he said, really? Like, you didn't give me more notice? Like, no.
I'd be
I just thought of it.
really mad.
Right? You'd be like, can you leave now?
You're like, no, I wouldn't be mad. I mean, I'd be okay, great.
Yeah.
You just thought of this as an
Yeah.
idea.
But I didn't do it on like a Friday night. That's, to be fair. I did it on like a Tuesday or Monday, I think. So that helped. And he does Roger's pairings are very good. He's able to really see through the sake. This Baka Genbai her signature pairing is this hanukatsu. So a very thick ham made into tonkatsu style, right? So breaded and fried, but there's blue cheese inside, and then paired with this very yogurt lactic nama nigori sake. This is meant to be like a dipping sauce. Yeah, and Nick's made it even better by making it with spam.
I did. It was very intense.
Yeah.
But I didn't have Nigori at the time, and I wish I did now because that would have been.
You can always do it again. You can do spam again. Do you need a can of spam?
No, I have one in the cupboard. I bought 2 because I was like, one day I'm gonna like crave this.
Have you ever had it in hot pot?
No.
Yeah, Eva, who used to be in Vancouver actually, and now is in Toronto, she showed us spam in hot pot, and it was very delicious.
It would be delicious, especially in like like a liquid, because I think a lot of that salt would be like leached out of
Yeah.
the
Well, like
meat. Is very
Korean
salty.
army soup, Korean army noodles, right? They put spam and like instant noodles in there. And I I like how you pointed out to Nick that this glass is speckled so that you don't see the white rice bits on your glass after you drank it. Because yeah, it looks kind of like thick after a while, right? This is a shiraya, so it's a tofu sauce, but there's strawberries in there and katsuobushi, bonito flakes, and there's also I think it's shingiku, which is chrysanthemum stems. So it's bitter, it's sweet, it has this like soy sweetness. The katsuobushi adds umami. Yeah, her pairings are really quite fun. Okay. Food pairings, continued style, ginjo versus non-ginjo. So if you have those fruity notes or not, that's one big way of classifying or categorizing sake. And then the second is, of course, junmai or not junmai. Right? If we have added alcohol ginjo versus junmai ginjo, that's going to change our perception of flavors and pairings. All the acidities that we've talked about. If we have more malic acid, that's the appley tartness. Citric, because maybe we've used white koji, or more glutamic acid because we've aged it. Those are all these different acids are going to give you different interactions. Historically, what you drank was, accompanied with what is available in that region, right? Like we weren't shipping sake back in the day from the northern part of Japan to the south, but that is very possible now, of course. So the concept of pairing something is really, really quite new actually within Japan. It's only now that we're saying with people like Maria-san and these Psalms and people like Francois Chartier who are breaking down sakes into its chemical compounds and saying this spice with this chemical compound in the wine is going to make sense. That's why it works. But usually would have been about the seasoning of that area, the geography, the movement of people that would have dictated what you're drinking and what you're eating. Because now we can eat anything from anywhere. We're able to get fish from like Argentina and Hokkaido and wherever else. And sakes have also changed. Like 100 years ago, people weren't drinking polished sake. The polishing machines are only really have been commercially available for the last 50 years. So 60% polish was not a thing. And so is pointing out chemical compounds. We're now able to say this is why this tastes like gooseberry, not just because of experience that's been passed down through generations. Taste buds and molecules. If you haven't seen this book, Canadian or Quebecois author who has. Yeah. It's if you haven't seen this book, it's pretty fascinating. Yeah. And he also has a sake. Tanaka Chartier is the sake that he's doing. So there's. Yeah, it's expensive, yeah. But because of his affinity, I guess, for sake, he's probably made this sake, done this project, but also in the book, he talks about sake quite a bit, which is nice. Yeah. Because you don't often see sake next to like people talking about sherry and jura, Yeah, so this picture, which was in the very first proportion. This is the blue bottle is Kidoizumi, but Asian sherry barrels, and drink it on its own, and it's quite strange, a little like almost disjointed, I think, because sake is not that intense, like it's quite light, and then you age it in a sherry barrel, which gives it this like sharpness and wittiness, I guess, and you have this like very disjointed beverage. But when you pair this with sancho, like salt pickled sancho peppercorns in your mouth, she literally said, it's like fireworks in your mouth, right? We're like, But it really was. If you take these like dried herbs, you can do it yourself or just use sancho from like TNT with these kinds of sakes, you'll see the reaction. More traditional sushi restaurant, the tsukemaguro. So this is tuna, but it's been marinated in soy sauce and sugar. And this with the tokubetsu junmai from Jikon was really delicious. Yeah, Jikon's more aromatic usually. They're aromatic sakes. So you would think that maybe this is too traditional of a pairing, but the sweetness of the soy sauce and also even the aromatics of the really finely chopped green onions really like come together nicely. Okay. This is a little excerpt or like slide from a presentation I did for the embassy. It was about sake and lasagna. They thought that all Canadians eat lasagna, and I played along and then trick them and say, here, okay, I'll talk about lasagna because you said so, but I'm also going to talk about what Canadians really eat, I think, which is everything, like I have had lasagna maybe 3 times in my life, and I'm probably not planning to eat it anytime soon. Not that I don't like it, but big meaty flavors, tomato sauce, bechamel, cheese. If that's your lasagna recipe, then what I would pair with is a bigger, earthier sake. You want that intensity. You want, like, if you think about like big red Italian wines maybe, but with that bitterness and acidity, you can find a sake like that. Middle picture is some paella I had with that we made over Zoom. And fish broth is a big component of it, with squid ink as well, and lots of seafood. So I think you could go with like a really crisp, clean sake, kind of like a Greek white wine feel, or Spanish wine, or you can also kind of go the opposite direction into like the more rich, bright acid, but ricey flavors as well. Unagi with Sancho, creamy Nigoris are nice. I think Sancho and Nigori I really like together. But the unagi sauce is quite sweet and savory. So you could probably also use an aged sake or Yamahai as well. Yeah. And sake will keep in the fridge for a very long time, right? Even if you open it and you drink it and that's delicious, but let's say it evolves over time, it doesn't mean that it's gone off, or it's not going to go off, and you can drink it still. You can add ice, you can add citrus, you can add soda, you can add beer to it, like there's so many things you can do. So definitely don't throw it out. Okay, which brings us to sake. Yay. Thank you for the map. We only have one from off the map this time. So the first sake I'm gonna try is Kazenamoni. You are Simon's eating lasagna. Also, I just think lasagna it takes a lot of time, and I do not have patience. I have time, I don't have patience for layering stuff. So Kazenamoni is the brewery that, so we had Bodaimoto, we had that sake that's made in the temple on week 2, and this is their more modern project. So this is from, I think, they've established this brand in the 90s and maybe like 95, 97 to bring their sake brewery to a kind of a different direction. Wow, really different. So the Bodaimoto being like so traditional, so like ancestral, you can smell the like temperature of the rice in that sake. This is like ultra modern, very, very opposite direction. So Nara, right? So Nara was the old capital of Japan, if you remember, and Kazenamori means the force of the winds. But there is apparently a pass or a ridge that's called that in Nara, and that's what it's named after. It's also made with akitsu whole rice. It's a table rice. It's only grown in Nara and, oh my God, one other place. I can't quite remember right now. But it's a table rice that mostly is used in Nara, polished at 50%, but the sake does not tell you that. The Alpha series from Kazenamori is all made from akitsu whole. The all these series, like type 1, type 2, the type 3's name is Sekai no Kakewashi, so bridge to the world. So this is the sake that they want to reach people from all corners of the world with, and that's the reason why this is the only sake from, well, one of the very few sakes from Kazenamori that's pasteurized once. A lot of their sakes, most of them are nama, but you can't ship nama very easily. So this is to try to reach more people. Yeah.
It has a lot going on. There's a lot of flavor. There's lots of texture. I think it's probably a little too warm. I think I let it out in the fridge a bit too long.
Oh, yeah.
To chill it down, I might have a better experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could put it back in the fridge for a bit. You can warm all the sakes if you want, but I'll tell you which ones. So sake number 2 and 3, so the middle 2 sakes are the ones that I would recommend trying warmed. You can warm this one, probably you would get just like kind of sweeter richness. But I think, yeah, up to you. This is one that I definitely would start off by having in a wine glass and definitely cold. So yeah, the type alphas, they don't tell you if it's a daiginjo, they don't want to call it that. And that is certainly a trend of this generation. Yeah. I think I like out of this for this brewery. I think my preference is their Bodayamotos, like the classic line.
Yeah, I do too.
But this is Kazenamoni is like super popular, and very very hard to get. Yeah, so this is available through Access Planning, and yeah, Konishi-san brings them in. I think it's Michiro Kintani.
Access planning. What is that? Doesn't sound real.
So Access Planning is a company that does their main business is lumber, like between Canada and Japan. So it was Access Planning, but he loves sake, so he brings in this and like choya and
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's how I think that's how he met some of these people, which is great.
Yukon used to be a lumber merchant, didn't they?
Yes,
They used to be wood merchants.
Yeah, which is why they're called Kiyasho. It's wood company. Yeah. Good.
That's simple.
Yeah. So Takacho, this is from Nara over here, right? So we've had a couple. This is our third Nara sake, actually. I must like them. But I think from a place that is so traditional comes revolution is a big word, but it comes young people who are like, okay, I get the history, I understand,
100%.
but let's take that and bring it to like the next era, the next stage. Yeah. And Akitsu, Akitsu is the old name for Japan. So Akitsu Island is what Japan was called, and of course, Nara being the old capital of Japan, the rice from Akitsu is like the rice from Japan is Nara. Yeah. People in Nara, I think, take themselves very seriously, and they're like role in history. I feel like. Yeah, they're like, we are the foundation of Japan, the history of Japan.
I think every culture has those people.
Fair. I wonder if like the Romans, have that sort of like, the pride that comes with that.
Italians, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
This is a photo I stole from Dachi's Facebook post, I think. Don't tell them. Okay, the next sake is with Kagatobi, M&G, I said, but it's the Muroka Nama Genshu. Okay, so Nama and pasteurized, Genshu, no water added. Muroka, so no charcoal filtering. Yeah.
I like this one.
Quite bright. It's good. Yeah, I took up my sakes too early too for the Kazenamoni, for the first sake, for the alpha, but this is really good temperature now. Yeah. So Kagatobi makes, sorry, not Kagatobi, Ishikawa, from Ishikawa, Fukumitsuya makes the Kagatobi line, and the Kagatobi Gokkan Junmai, we've had it like I've worked with for 15 years, but this is their seasonal release, and it's really juicy. And that nose, you kind of get that, this is the Nama nose.
Yep.
Sweet rice, almond, like almond milk kind of makes sense.
Has like a intensity to it, like almost like citrus, very like, it's kind of floral. It's also very like, it's got this like geranium kind of thing going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a green like herbaceousness, that comes with that. Yeah, but this nose is like the marker for Namazakes, Nama Muroka in particular. Yeah. The alcohol in it.
Before the Edo period.
Yeah.
It says Nara was before the Edo period.
Yeah, so Nara was the old capital of Japan. Then it went to Kyoto, right? And then it became Tokyo, Edo. And then that's why the Edo period is called that, because it was really focused.
Back to Kyoto, and then back to Tokyo, and then back to Kyoto.
Nara, Kyoto, Tokyo. Oh, did it go back at one point? Yeah.
I don't know. There's a very famous YouTube video. I don't know if you've ever seen it, about the history of Japan. It's iconic. I don't know. You must have seen it.
About the periods? That's good.
No,
I should.
about how like everything happens. I'll link it in the thing. If you haven't seen it, it's very iconic. But it was from like 10 years ago, but it's very funny. He makes it humorous. A very confusing history, kind of not makes fun of it, but the way he talks about it is very
like lighter. Yeah. And clearly helps you remember, right? Because like it is pretty confusing of all the different
words. Yeah, it's a pretty.
And I barely remember history of Canada where I grew up, you know. So yeah, Edo is the old name for Tokyo, which is the capital of Japan currently still. Yeah.
If you ever go to Tokyo, go to the Edo Museum. It is the coolest museum you'll ever go to.
I've never been. Yeah.
It's like this huge like hall, and it just has like Edo buildings in there, and you just like walk through.
There's there's actual like parts of buildings right inside. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Traveling. So Ishikawa.
I like this.
We've had some Ishikawa sakes again. I think I personally, and you too, Nick, we like the Ishikawa sakes. So from this prefecture here on the west coast, the Noto, the northern bit being Noto Peninsula. Yeah, sakes are usually not very bright and juicy and ginjo like. They're more kind of layered and more on the umami side than the fruit world. Yeah. Okay, the next sake is so this is the one that you can warm, and when you warm it, you should get more sweetness, more kind of richness, but it's quite what's we're looking for. It finishes really clean, so it shouldn't be cloying even if you warm it. You know? I think this is a good temperature right now. I think it warmed up pretty fast for me, but yeah, you can try it like cold out of the fridge, then you can warm it to room temperature, and then again to like hotter. I'd say that getting it up to like 55, it would be okay. So by warming it, you can make it not nama, right? You're like pasteurizing it once if you get up to 65 degrees. And if you add a little splash of water too, that'll open it up, because it's 18% according to the LCBO. It's 18%.
So you're saying they need to add things and pasteurize it to get it to taste very good, to taste better, and then sprinkle some charcoal, and then you've got do everything.
Just playing with it too, so you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kidding. What does the red sticker say on the bottle? I feel like it's a warning. As someone who doesn't read Japanese,
it says
Muroka. It's a very prominent sticker that feels like it's telling me something very important.
So this says Muroka, so no charcoal filtering, and then this character on the bottom, this is like a stylized version of nama, which means raw, right, and pasteurized. It also says, this one says Dewa. There's actually quite a bit of information on it. So Dewa 2, so it was made in the Dewa 2 BY, which we're right now and still in the third. So this was the most current finished brew year. And then this is Nakagumi. So this is the middle. We talked about Nakadori and Nakagumi. So this is the middle pressing. Hey, we do have a pressed fraction sake.
There we go.
Yay. So this is the middle portion. That's why it is really intense. It's really big. And then it also says Nama Genshu. So lots going on here. I also tried it a little bit like over ice and then a little squeeze of lemon because it was so humid the other day and hot. And I think that really kind of lightens up.
That would be fun.
Yeah. 65% polish, seasonal release. Has anyone tried it warm yet? Okay. I'm looking forward to this sake. Oh, wow. Even from the pouch. That's
this color.
Wow.
I mean, if you want a gift idea for your sister, buy her some BC sake. I feel like it would make it.
Who's sister?
Rachel.
Oh, Rachel. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah.
Rachel would love some BC sake.
Yeah, and then there's YK3. There's also artisan sake, and then you've got some you've got some choice. Wow. Okay, so this is YK3, and the reason why they call it YK3 is the three partners. They all have the initials YK. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people call it like YK2 a lot, and it's YK3. And the brand is called YU, and this is the all koji. And this is aged for 10 plus years. The brewery itself has been around for 10 plus years, probably like 13 years now. So this was made when they were called Nipro, so it was a different owner. The brewer was the same, but the owner was different, and they made an all koji sake. If you remember fermentation and the difference between koji rice and kake rice, for all koji, they're using no kake rice. They're using all koji for all the additions. Right?
That seems very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive and very flavorful because you're using so much koji to get like this richness and body out of it.
They do this in Japan. Is this a style? Mm-hmm. All koji.
Yeah, like zen koji, all koji. Yeah, wow. But because it's all koji and has this like intensity and like richness, that's why it's aged for 10 years so well. Wow. I think that's like the last time I had this was probably last year, and definitely has changed, maybe a different batch as well. But this smells to me like soy sauce and mirin and mushrooms and
very mushroomy.
Yeah. I don't know what I would have it with. If you warm it,
it's like very fresh. Like it's still got like, it drinks really well, like light on its feet. It's not a heavy sake.
No. Yeah, I thought it would be sweeter actually. This maybe if you warmed it with some like dried apricots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to add a little like fruity sweetness to it. Wow. Yeah, dried fruit, nutty, all those kinds of things.
That's a cool taco.
What would I pair this with? Cheese. Maybe like a dry salty cheese. And if you warm it, you'll taste more sweetness, but there's a lot of acidity, so it'll hold up. But it's quite salty too. Yeah. Fun.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thank you, Michiro. Funny. Yeah. Oysters, maybe like I had what is it, like you can make ponzu jelly, or like, or granite, and put that over oysters. With this would be yeah, mushroom risotto, something like that. Yeah, mushrooms would make a lot of sense. Morels in cream sauce. So they brew with Calrose rice. This is Jinmai. I don't know what the polish is. I couldn't find too much information, but it's lower alcohol than I thought. It's only 14%.
There's 70 on the label.
Oh, thank you. 17, really?
70.
Oh, 70. Yeah. Thank you.
I didn't announce it.
The brewery has like recently had to move from their Richmond location, Vancouver location, to I think they haven't secured a place yet. So for now, it's we're a little unknown what's going to happen to the brewery, but I'm sure Kasagai-san will keep on brewing. Yeah, hopefully. Okay. Yeah. Then the Tangamai Nigori.
I like this.
Is the left sake, is the Nigori sake. So this is if you want to grab like black pepper. I'm going to go do that.
Shake it before you pour it in a glass if you haven't done so already.
Yeah, if you don't shake it, you have like separation. I got this pepper grinder the other day, and I put my Sancho peppers in there.
It's just Szechuan, isn't it? Or is it different?
What?
Is it Szechuan? Is that Szechuan? Ooh, what can I speak? Oh, I know I can't speak. It's nearly midnight. Szechuan peppers. Are they
Yeah,
Szechuan peppers? Yeah.
they're like Szechuan ones, but Sancho, like the Japanese, maybe it's a variety or breed or just grown there, is more perfumed but less numbing. Yeah, but Szechuan would work too. You can buy them from you can buy the S&B one, like Shimi and then Sancho. Yeah. So on its own, this is local rice. Yeah, 65%. It's Goyaku Mangoku, apparently. Michiro knew better than I did. Yamahai.
I mean, it is a local rice, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, it is partly correct. Yeah, mine's warmed up a little too much. Yamahai, it's seishu, so it's not junmai, and it's nigori, as you can see. It's seasonal. It's only available between November and January. And yeah, I really like this because nigoris are kind of difficult. They're sometimes really sweet. But the fact that it's Yamahai, even though it's added alcohol, I think the balance is nice. And you probably want it a little bit cold. And if you have a rather sparkling water, you can add that and it just like lifts it a little bit. I'm going to use my soda stream.
Having it with togarashi.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, like that.
And it says shishimi. It says shishimi, which is 7. I learned that through Shishi Honari and Shida.
Yeah, Shihonari, Shida. Shimi, yeah, there's 7 components. I think one of the things is hemp seed, isn't it?
Hemp seed, seaweed, sansho, poppy seed, sesame, orange peel, and chili pepper. It's really delicious with nigori.
Yeah, you can use it on a lot of things. So I added just like sparkling water, but you can use beer, radler. I'd probably use like a pretty simple beer personally, but pepper was great. Oh, good. Black pepper I'm going to try with Sancho.
Chemistry, midnight chemistry class.
Yeah.
That's great.
I like it. There is something to be said about how I like Sancho and everything. So, especially on popcorn, that's very good.
That would be tasty.
Yeah. This is so SMV, which we haven't talked about yet. I think SMV stands for sake meter value, and in Japanese it's Nihon Shudo, so sake value. And 0 is the same weight as water, whereas the lower you go, the heavier it is apparently. So higher in the positive side, higher is drier is what you want to remember. Plus 10 sake is going to be quite dry. And then minus 15 in this case, if you just look at the number, you'll be like, oh, it's going to be sweet. But in this case, it's just about the weight of the rice leaves, like the solids in there. So I wouldn't get too concerned about this number. A lot of brewers are just like, nah, I don't want to write that down on anything because people get like swayed into thinking something is something. So they just refuse to put it now. And I think that's not a bad thing. I don't miss that number ever. Yeah. But if you get a sake that's plus 10 or like plus 14 or something, you know it's going to be dry. And if you get a sake that's in the negative side, then it's probably heavier. Like it's almost just like calculating the weight of the sake. So if it's lower, minus 15, minus 20, then you know it's heavier. So there's more like solids or there's more glucose in it, which is what it's supposed to measure. Yeah. Not very important. Oh, congrats. Meto is what I said. Okay. And yeah, I had some people request subscription sets in Vancouver, so I'm gonna attempt
Do
to do it in Vancouver. Yeah. So if
Do
anyone
it.
wants to sign up for a subscription in Vancouver, I will email you and post about it on Instagram as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So you get you get some mystery bottles of sake and some snacks and like write-ups, all that kind of stuff.
Is it aramasa? Will I get aramasa?
Yeah, you get 2 ounces of masa, maybe a little like jikon in there as well. That's what you're gonna get. Yeah.
It's not let go. I just want to taste it. I just want to taste it.
I do have a bottle in my fridge, but it's like 16 vintage that I've been aging. So once we can see each other.
I mean, if Genbaimoto gets their own aramasa made for them, I don't know why I can't.
Yeah, this is a good point. We should ask them. Their labels have become really psychedelic again, and it's interesting.
It's a very like in your face.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
Like,
it's interesting.
Oh, I use yeast number 6. Did you know? Because there's a big 6 on my label. So
yeah, it's over and over again. He does not hide that ever. Yeah. So what was everyone's favorite this time?
Yeah. I really like the nama. It's so good. So that said, I did like the Tengumai Nigori. That was good.
That is pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think anything like smoked or a little caramelized, all those things would go really well with the pairing. I was talking to a friend in Ottawa who has a vegetarian pairing menu, and she does a lot of fermentation. And she was saying how the extreme sakes, like really like not normal sakes basically, are the ones that she really looks for her pairings, because she does a lot of fermentation. And if you're doing like garam, and what is that, garam, and pickles and stuff, then you need some sakes that are pretty out there. Yeah, really fun, which is what Maria-san at Genbaimoto does too. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know or reach out over Instagram or email. Thank you, Nick, for being here every week and listening to me rant, and for the maps.
No, never. It's always fun. I'm always learning something. It's great. And I hope everyone, I remember the first time I did Hakko Gakko, I definitely felt like more confident, and I hope you all do as well. And, be curious and, try new things and try new sakes. I think that's always the moral of the story, is like, just have fun with it. Don't get stressed out about things you don't understand. Like, just buy it and look it up on the internet. I don't know. That's kind of
there's a lot of information out there. Yeah, so I'll send you the YouTube link and the map. I think I already sent the map with the link like earlier tonight, 10 minutes before 7. But I can send it again with the link. Yes, I hope I can come to Vancouver soon as well.
Level 2.
I gotta make a level 2 class first. Nick's just like,
we'll get there. We got to give people what they want.
Yeah. So go out and drink and eat at all these great restaurants and stores.
Oh yeah, you guys get to go eat in restaurants. Yeah, that's fun.
Well, definitely.
Ask people, go to a nice restaurant. Like, if you go to a nice restaurant that has a great wine list, like, I don't know, you should be saying, hey, do you have any sakes that I could try? And if they don't, you got to at least it's at least communicating to these sommeliers who know what sake is and have definitely asked the question, should I put a sake on the list? And they've obviously said no, but if they, now that they're like, oh, more people keep asking for sake. Like, it's not the only way to promote sake, but it is a very good, a very positive way is getting wine people to like start talking about sake more, because when they do, I definitely see more of it in shops, and I definitely see more of it on lists. So, the more we can get people drinking sake, I think the better it is.
Well, at the very least, we know you can already go to Burdock, you can go to Pigeon, you can go to Dachi, to Ugly Dumpling, and then go to all the stores. Go to
Yeah,
Alexi at the 39th and Cabby store, or Legacy, or Kits. All these guys have a lot. Oh, Lulu Island. There's some really great sake shops.
yeah, and that's the other thing. Know what your local sake shop is, like where you live, like what's the closest, and like
Yeah.
go there once a month and say, hey, I want to try something new. Tell me what to get. Like this is my price point.
Go to
Like
Granville Island and talk to Masa and eat his ice cream. And yeah, I think there's still cheese there, right? Do they still do pairings? I wonder. Anyways, you can do all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, yeah, you can afford to be like honest. Like, hey, I've only got $40 to spend. What
yeah,
sake can I get? You don't. Some fancy sakes are like $100, $90. Like that's fine, but like tell people what you can afford. You
yeah.
don't have to like
Glasses like
you
it
know,
too,
yeah, a pouch. So
Or
where's
a
my
pouch.
pouch of sake?
Yes. And
I
warm
think
meat
if we've learned anything over pandemic is that
pouch.
sake, if nothing else, can go into pouches much better than wine.
That is a
So
big takeaway. So thank you
yeah,
everybody again. I hope to see you in person soon. And yeah, drink more sake. Thank you,
drink more
Nick.
sake. Ciao,
Everybody.
ciao, ciao.
See you soon.